Hi, welcome to the Daiku Podcast. I'm Gary Snow. Today, I welcome Erin Green, who's an incredible illustrator and art instructor from Vancouver, BC, who's been teaching art for over 15 years to students of all ages. Erin is also illustrating many of the weird little monsters in the Fang Dungeon Bestiary, which is currently crowdfunding on Backerkit as part of Zinetopia. Erin, welcome.
Thank you so much, Gary. Hi.
Hi. Well, first of all, I am so pleased to finally meet you face to face, or virtual face to face. I know we've tried connecting. Erin lives just over the mountains, well, like a lot of mountains from where I live in Calgary, and we've tried to connect when I've been in Vancouver before, but I think you were in San Francisco at the time. But finally face to face, even though we've been messaging back and forth, as the way is of the internet.
I'm so happy that we kind of finally get to meet.
So this is going to be fun getting to know you more. And usually on my show, I ask the guests, hey, when did you get started in tabletop role-playing games? However, because your background is more into art, I'm going to have to now ask you, how did you get involved in art?
Well, I was not a kid who drew a lot. I was more of a performer. I really loved dancing and, acting and things like that. And I wanted to learn how to draw, wanted to paint. I have a lot of artists in my family, but I just didn't have the patience to really learn. And then I was in my mid-20s and I have a comic book collection. I really love Von Baudet, who did a comic called Dead Bone, sort of psychedelic stuff from the 70s. And there was this one panel that I was obsessed with. I would just, I'd always look at this panel and think what a great mural that would be, or if that, if I could just have a print of this. And I decided one day to try to paint it, to replicate it. And I actually tried to paint it on a box where we kept goodies, and I replicated it perfectly. And I was so shocked with my ability to copy this panel that I thought, wow, it kind of took away the mystery around painting and illustrating. And I thought, well, if I can replicate it, maybe I can do my own. And around the same time, my mom had introduced Photoshop to me. Photoshop had just come out, which is really dating me, but I started playing with Photoshop. I loved it, got pretty good at it, I guess, over about a year, playing with it every day, and then had the opportunity to do some graphic art for an adult website. And yeah, so I started doing some graphic design for this adult website, and then decided to go to art school. I was like, I'm an adult student. I had dropped out of high school, so I didn't think I'd ever go to college. But at I guess I was 28, I went to took fine arts, loved it, and then I went on to do a communication design bachelor's at Emily Carr. And while I was there, I realized, at the time I thought I would be a designer, right? Because I went in with some graphic design background, and but through my experience at Emily Carr, I realized I did not want to be a professional graphic designer. I worked with a few clients, didn't love it. And I realized I wanted to illustrate. And then I started learning more about illustration, what it meant to be an illustrator, started to sort of practice different styles. And along with that, really got into teaching too. So ever since then, it's been 20 years that I've been illustrating and about 15 that I've been teaching.
Well, it sounds like, although different areas, me and you both have a similar experience where I was like a wandering tree planting snowboard bum until I was like 27 or 28. And then I went, I better get my shit together before before I have a family and all that kind of stuff. But but same kind of thing, like graphic design and exploring new media communications and all that kind of stuff. And I'm dating myself too, because I was like, early days of the internet and Photoshop and all that fun stuff. But how I discovered you, Erin, was it's probably been no maybe secret. I've been kind of like toying with the idea of making a star version of Fangasahola, like Starfang, Star Wars, Ralph McQuarrie inspired kind of like game. And I was looking for Ralph McQuarrie inspiration, and I stumbled across your video where you were doing a replication of Ralph McQuarrie. And I'm going to pop it up here on the screen just to kind of to showcase it. And this was more of like Battlestar Galactica, even though Ralph is, and forgive me for a sec, I'm going to remove it from the screen after I just put it on. I am a huge Ralph McQuarrie fan. and I have like a lot of his like portfolio pieces from Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. And so I discovered your Ralph McQuarrie video, and I was like, this is so cool. This is exactly like, I would love to find an artist that could do this kind of work. And then you blew me away, because after this, I discovered that you also did Ivan Earl, and you do replications of his amazing work from Sleeping Beauty. And on top of that, you also do Mary Blair, which also is amazing work that you do. And then on top of that, like more Ivan Earl, and even maybe more ironic is Scooby-Doo that you've done, as well as Maurice Noble. So now I'm going to totally nerd out here, because like I am such a huge fan of...
Oh, that's a great book. I want that book. I don't have that book. Wait, maybe I do. I don't know.
Well, there's the other one. I actually have that too, is the Art and Flair of Mary Blair, and I've got that one. And I'm suspecting you might have this one. I'm not too sure.
I don't. I want it. Anybody watching or listening that wants to buy me a gift, I do not have that book, and it's very expensive.
It is crazy expensive. I'm glad that I got it when it was still relatively cheap, but it's very hard to find. And then on top of that, Maurice Noble.
Yeah.
And so I've been a huge, like, I almost felt like, in Step Brothers, when we were all like, oh, are we best friends now? Like everything.
What's going to happen is I'm going to break into your house and you're going to wake up one morning and all your books are going to be gone.
And so for me, I was like, this is just almost like too much of a coincidence that you do everything. And then I completely ripped off like from Maurice for the Viking opera. What's opera
doc?
Yeah, what's opera doc?
So classic. If you're gonna rip off anything, that's the thing to rip off.
Yeah. So like everything you do just like spoke to me so much. I was like, this is like my person as far as art goes. Like everything's just so amazing that you do. But how did that evolve for you? Because you talked about like you liked comic books and like, so what pop culture inspiration, like where did you pick up all these pop culture pieces?
Well, it's funny because you were saying at the very beginning that usually you're interviewing people about, role-playing games and things like that. And I grew up playing D&D. I was a big D&D nerd. Oh, wow. And got back into RPGs when I was in my like late 30s, early 40s. And I was exposed to, at that point, a lot of Ralph McQuarrie concept art, because the people I was playing D&D with were also into Ralph McQuarrie, Star Wars, Battlestar, a lot of that cool sci-fi stuff. And I had been a really big Star Wars fan. I saw all of them in the theaters, but I also continued being a fan throughout my 20s. And so the Ralph McQuarrie stuff was kind of the first concept art that I really appreciated, that really got me excited as an artist, as an appreciator of art. And when after COVID, hit and we couldn't leave our houses, and I started a YouTube channel to sort of supplement my teaching practice, I thought, well, one way I could teach people how to use gouache, which is my medium of choice, is I could do some concept art. I knew a little bit about Mary Blair, and I really loved her. And the more I was finding out about her through the internet, just research. And I like Disney, but I'm not like a massive Disney fan. I really don't want to disappoint anybody who might be watching this that watch my channel. But I do really enjoy Disney cartoons, but it was more the Warner Brothers. It was more the Maurice Noble, Ralph McQuarrie stuff, because that's the stuff from my childhood that I really, really love, that kind of mid-century modern look, which with Disney, you don't really see that unless you start seeing the concept art. The finished films don't really have that. Ivan Earl's Sleeping Beauty, of course, was gorgeous and really stood out. but it wasn't really on my radar. So it started with the Maurice Noble and the other sort of sci-fi mid-century stuff. But then when I started the channel, I thought, well, why don't I start with Mary Blair? Why don't I introduce her to the channel first? Because her work seemed a little more approachable as far as painting. It's a little more straightforward. And the more I learned about her, as I said, the more I loved her. So I created this little mini doc and then started replicating her work. And then it just branched out from there. And I started pulling from, my childhood and the things that really excited me and the concept art that I discovered later in life. So I think that sort of answers the question, I think. But I'm into all that stuff, all the sci-fi. Heavy Metal magazine was a huge inspiration for me growing up. As I mentioned, Von Baudet, Mobius, The Incal is one of my favorite graphic novels. Yeah.
Well, that is super cool. And how did it play out as far as like learning? Talk to me about your journey as far as like, when you go to art school or any kind of school, really, they teach you the basics and they don't really want you to kind of branch out yet, right? They're just like, okay, here's what you're supposed to do. And then you find your own style. So how long did it take for you to like learn the skills? Like how much was self-taught versus school? And then how much have you expanded since then?
Okay, well, honestly, it's funny. I think school was great as far as pushing me and technical stuff. Drawing, I wasn't great at drawing, so school really pushed me to create or to start drawing every day, which is really the secret. Anybody that wants to learn how to draw, you just have to practice. It's just practice, and you start to see things. You start to see negative space, and you start to see proportions and things that you don't really focus on before you start practicing every day. So I think school was great for that. It also helped me understand color theory. I had to take classes specifically about color theory and typography and things like that. So that was all very helpful. But really the real learning came from practicing. And before I started school and I was replicating, I didn't just do the one replicant, of Von Baudet's. I started to replicate Sam Keith. I was a big fan of the Max, which remains one of my favorite comics of all time. But I would, replicate covers from that. And what else? I was replicating a lot before I even went to school. And I think the secret, well, maybe not the secret, but for me, what really helped was just really observing, like trying to figure out how did this artist make this, and then looking at every layer and figuring out, like, is that spray paint? Is that colored pencil? Like, how did they do this? And so it was sort of like a puzzle for me, and approaching it like a puzzle and approaching it, copying things is such a great way to learn because there's no pressure to come up with your own thing, right? So that was a great way to learn technique. And then, school got me into the more daily practice, which is really important. And then after I graduated, it took a few years. Honestly, it was like, I'm going to say it was almost 10 years of just trying different styles, trying loose watercolor with ink, and then trying, I kept kind of going back to acrylic because I like the flat planes of color. I really like the graphic style that it can give you. And then sort of rediscovered gouache because I had used it in school and really loved it in school, but it, it kind of expensive and it was a little bit intimidating. And then I was gifted a bunch of gouache. I was given a whole ton of gouache, and I thought, well, this is my opportunity. Started playing with it a little bit. And then I did the 100 days challenge. It was when it started off on Instagram. Now it's all over the place, 100 days this or that, or Ink October and Inktober, I think it's called. Yeah. But anyway, so I did the 100 days, did 100 gouache paintings. And that's when I really sort of honed in on kind of a style, sort of this kind of esoteric, magical, fun, cute, I don't know, like magic plants doing seances and stuff, and just sort of realize like, oh, if I follow my obsessions, I'm obsessed with plants, I'm obsessed with magic, I'm obsessed with the like tarot and these things that I thought, oh, if I just focus on my obsessions and I keep using the same medium every day, I'll eventually get my own voice. I'll figure my stuff out. And so that's pretty much brings us up to date. That was the 100 Days project was almost 10 years ago now. And since then I've felt like, yeah, I know who I am as an artist, and I can deviate from that and try doing totally different things whenever I want. And because I don't really make a living making art, aside from the occasional fun project like what I'm doing with you, I'm a teacher. So I don't have to worry about the art thing being my main gig. So it really frees me up.
And going back to like teaching, what's your process for that as far as like young students or maybe adult students too, but they come in and they're like just learning. What kind of nuggets of wisdom do you pass along to
Oh
them
my
during the
gosh. Well, I think like what I was just saying is I think I threw a lot of nuggets into that one answer about, my own art practice. And something I'm always driving home to people is, practice really does maybe not make perfect, but it is about getting into a rhythm with it. And just even if it's drawing 20 minutes a day, it's really going to make a difference. And the other thing is I work mostly with adults now. I work as a professor or an instructor. I wouldn't call myself a professor, but I'm an instructor at Emily Carr. And I hear a lot of people say, I'm not very creative, or my mom's an artist and I'm not. And I do try to remind people that a very small portion of the population can draw and paint naturally, right? It's something that we really need to learn. It's like learning how to drive or learning a new language. So it's just, I think as a teacher, I've always felt like it's important for me to let people know, if you're willing to practice, if you're willing to learn the techniques and then use reference and really learn how to look at things, and then you'll do it. You'll be okay. And so those are a few nuggets, practice, and then just trusting yourself that you'll learn the skills. And then the other thing, going back to like me having a job that's not art, I think it's an amazing thing if you can, make a living making art and it feels good to you. That's great. But I think a lot of people, they start making art for a living and then it kind of kills the passion. So another piece of advice I give is, if you want to be a professional artist or a professional illustrator, give yourself like 3 or 4 years of building your skills, your portfolio. Like, don't expect this to happen tomorrow or next year. Really give yourself I'd say 3 to 5 years to build yourself up to the point that you can start getting good paid work. Or choose another career, choose something that's adjacent. Teaching is great. I absolutely adore being an art teacher. I feel so grateful that that's my job and that I can make art in my own time and it's fun. There's no pressure. And then every once in a while I'll get a contract, doing illustrations of these monsters for you it's so much fun because I'm not bogged down with a bunch of other clients. I'm really right now only dealing with 2 clients, you and someone I'm doing a mural for, right? So that's a really important piece of advice, is don't feel discouraged if art isn't what you end up doing for a living. That if it's just that you learn the skills and then you can play and keep it playful, it's great.
And how did you transition from, like, because we both like are from the golden age of the internet and like all the digital tools, how did you transition from like doing on canvas and to digital? Like, at what point did you go, hey, I really enjoy working in the digital space?
Well, because I started off with Photoshop, I think that helped me from being intimidated, I guess. I had worked with Photoshop for so long, but I wasn't able to use a Wacom tablet. I tried a few times to do the drawing thing where you're drawing on a tablet and you're looking at your screen, and my brain I did not enjoy it. I could have practiced. I'm sure I would have figured it out eventually, but yeah. So when I finally did get an iPad, which was, I'm going to say about 5 or 6 years ago, I broke down and bought myself an iPad, and I immediately fell in love. There was no awkward phase, to be told. I hate to say it, but I just immediately jumped in, and I had this very playful practice. Every day I would open up Procreate, open up a new file, throw in whatever color was on my mind. If I was into pink that day, I'd throw pink down, and then I'd just take the next color that felt like it harmonized with pink without even thinking about, color theory, just what color is going to look good on that. And then I'd grab some random brush, do a random shape, and then keep going and build up images or, landscapes or whatever, alien looking landscapes, by just very freely grabbing colors and different brushes. And that way I learned the program. Like, I learned what was there while creating a lot of really fun fun exploratory pieces. And so that's sort of how I got into Procreate. And then eventually I stopped using Photoshop altogether. The only thing I've opened up Photoshop for was like making an invoice. I had to make an invoice and I didn't realize I could do that.
So that is one creative invoice that you're making in Photoshop.
It's like the most boring invoice too. It was so ugly. But then I realized, oh, I could make invoices in Canva, and like, what am I doing? So I feel bad. I miss Photoshop, and maybe one day I'll open it up again to do some, more like photographic kind of collage work. But I took to Procreate. Like, it felt like that was waiting for me all along. And now, I mean, I still paint almost every day, but I'm obsessed with my iPad.
And then for those that don't know, like Emily Carr, I don't actually know the full history of Emily Carr herself. But I know she's a renowned artist in Canada. But Emily Carr Institute, like that school is like top notch as far as artists go in Canada, I would think. I guess it's a somewhat prestigious university. It's a university now. When I was attending Emily Carr in 2000, I think I started in 2005. It had just become a university. So there's, you have to take science now, and you have to take these more academic courses, but it has quite the reputation. It kicked my ass personally. I think when I went to Emily Carr, when I was in my early 30s, I was emotionally kind of a wreck, and I was older than everyone else in my program, and I felt really out of place. But the school itself really, really pushed me. I was really pushed, and I thought, okay, this is living up to its reputation of being this prestigious school. And then it was an absolute dream to go back and work there. I thought if I could ever go back and be an instructor, because I had instructors that changed my life, like for the better and the worse. I had these incredibly impactful experiences with instructors. So I thought if I could go back and do that, that would be a dream. And then about 10 years later, that dream came true, and I work in the continuing studies, so it's not quite, I applied to be a professor a few years ago and didn't make it, but I'm actually happy I didn't, because it would have been too much work, I think. But I'm so happy to be working as a continuing studies instructor there now, especially because I'm working with people that are, a lot of the time, they're not going for a degree, they're kind of coming back to art, or they're exploring it for the first time, maybe in their 50s or 60s. And then we have very young students as well that are in the illustration program, which is part of what I teach. So it's been a real joy. Emily Carr is a very exciting place to be. Cool. Well, I am going to first of all, I'm going to add onto the stage here, just so people know. If you want to see Erin's work in print one day, you can back the Dungeon Bestiary that is currently on Zinetopia. You get 36 custom monsters. So we're gonna be tag teaming this a little bit, but obviously Erin is doing some stellar work, and very happy that she is on board. So you're gonna get 36 monsters. You can see some of them, and we'll go through more of those up close. And you can get the core rules, which I already flashed on the screen that I ripped off Maurice Noble with. And so you can just get all these like crazy cool monsters. So here's some of the old monsters that have been designed for the game, and you can get the quick rules postcard. And there's a whole community of people that have made games. And Omer Shapira is doing Raspberry Juice, which is an adventure for Fang, and he's also doing that on Backerkit. So check it all out on Backerkit. I'll put all the links to both Erin's work on Children of the Craft and Dungeon Bestiary and all the Daiku game stuff, and you could check that out. But before we move on to like going up close and looking at some of your monster designs, how did you come up with the name? Like I'm guessing, but I want to get the official recounting of like, how did you come up with the name for Children of the Craft?
Children of the Craft, yeah. Well, as you probably have guessed, it's a play on Children of the Corn, which is, a very schlocky horror movie based on a Stephen King novel. Children of the Corn, which I think I've only seen that movie like maybe twice in my life, and just it stuck with me though. It's something that was really fun. And I'm thinking, gosh, I think I started Children of the Craft maybe 10 years ago now, or 11 years. It's been 11 years, I think. But one day I thought, at that point I'd already been teaching art privately from my house, and I was running a video store at the time. So everybody who would come in with their kids, I'd be like, hey, you want me to teach your kids private art classes? So I did a lot of private art teaching. And I just had these dreams of like running my own kind of art school, and having this thing. And one day I thought, I want to start an art school called Children of the Craft. And I thought of, I was thinking Children of the Corn, but Children of the Craft, and craft being kind of a play on, crafting and your craft, but also witchcraft and, sort of magical. And so it felt so right to me. I also, you might think this is interesting, Gary, because of what you do, but I also started a business or a company called Chaotic Fabulous. And it was like the idea of like chaotic good. But it was Chaotic Fabulous. And as soon as I did it, like a couple weeks later, someone else started the same company. Someone else got the same name. And actually my logo was a 20-sided die.
Yeah.
And they did the same thing. So I was like, well, I think I'll just focus on Children of the Craft. They can have Chaotic Fabulous. And so, yeah, so that's how that came about.
Was Chaotic Fabulous going to basically be the same business model, or was it
not
something
really?
else?
It was less the teaching and more my own stuff, I guess, or like artwork, but also videos. And I had this whole vision of, it was more of like a personal brand than the teaching practice. But I'm glad it happened the way it did, because personal branding now, it makes me, I hate to say it, but I kind of cringe. I get nervous even doing video. Like I don't have any videos on my YouTube of me. It's funny because when I was a kid, I was like, everyone look at me. And now I'm like, no one look. Like I get a little nervous. So I'm glad that it's Children of the Craft, and that's my focus.
So now I have to kind of ask about like when you played D&D, what kind of characters did you play back in the day?
Well, there were a few, but I did have a half elf, half human. So my human half was berserk. I was a berserker human elf.
Yeah.
So I could do some magic, like some pretty basic spells, but I could also go berserk. So I think it was like it was like 11 plays or something, and then I'd go berserk. Like I had to roll the number and then go crazy. So that was really fun. I really enjoyed being that character. I have been so many characters since then, but I do tend to like being able to use magic. So I'm usually an elf of some kind. Sometimes dark elves. I think dark elves are pretty fun.
And I also have to ask, and now we're twinning again, the video store. What was it, an indie store or was it a chain or?
Well, I worked at many video stores, so that's like I've worked at more video stores than I've done anything else. That sort of was my thing. But I worked at Mega Movies. I worked at Rogers Video. I worked at what else? But the place that I was talking about was an independent video store called They Live. So it was Cinephile, and then it was bought by someone I was living with, and it was called They Live, John Carpenter
Awesome.
reference.
Yeah.
And it was an awesome video store in a really cool neighborhood, fun little neighborhood that was, eventually very gentrified. But I started there.
No room for video stores in a gentrified neighborhood. That does not pay the bills.
That's right. Yeah. So it was great while it lasted. I worked there for I think almost 10 years. I was the manager of the video store.
Well, I in high school worked at what they called, ironically, 24-hour video in a small town in British Columbia.
Yeah, I remember 24-hour video.
But it was not open 24 hours. And so you'd be locking the door at 11:59 or, midnight, and there'd be people pounding on the window at 12:01 going, "You're 24 hours." And I was like, oh,
damn.
So bad name.
Yeah.
But I spent, like I mentioned, I kind of was, failure to launch, or maybe just exploring life or whatever. But I do remember basically at the end of my shift at midnight, I would take home like 2 or 3 like really cool movies, like a John Carpenter movie or like a schlocky Children of the Corn. and I would watch those and then just repeat, and that was like a lot of years spent with
Yeah,
watching movies. And I got a lot of fun stories though from that time. Like I
it's
loved working
great.
at the video store. I love movies. And
Yeah, me too. Me too. I mean, honestly, if I wasn't an art teacher, I would try to figure out a way to work in a video store again. I mean, there aren't very many left, but or I'd open one up for myself. It was such an incredible job. It was so much fun. So many neat people, and yeah, I'd take home movies every night, and I still watch a lot of movies. I'm still very obsessed. Yeah.
do you watch the same one? I'm kind of like, once I find a movie I really like, I just kind of like cycle through them every now and again and go, oh, I really love that.
Definitely. Yes, I definitely do. I just watched the other night, I watched one of my all-time favorites, Tampopo, Japanese film about food, basically about noodles. And it's one of my all-time favorites, and I watched it. I introduced it to a new person. I'm like, have you seen Tampopo? And they haven't, so I get to watch it again. Rosemary's Baby, I watch every single year. The Shining, I watch every Christmas. Like there are definitely, I have comfort movies that I go back to over and over again for sure.
Isn't it fun watching your favorite movie or favorite, like among favorite movies, with people that had never seen it before? And I know I've now passed it along to my daughter, and so she like has a favorite movie, and she'll like get her friends to watch it, and they're like, "Quit looking at me," because all she's doing is like looking at their reactions. And I do the
Oh,
same thing when they were younger. I introduced movies to them that when they were way too young. I'm like, okay, you're 5 years old, let's watch ET. And then they were like crying when ET was like
yeah, that's
gray
good
in the
though. I
river.
think that kind of exposure. I think that's really sweet. I don't have kids, but that's one thing I wish. Like that's one of the things I miss out on is I introducing kids to cool stuff. And I feel weird doing that with students when I had children. Like when I had young students, I was always very careful of what to introduce to them. But I remember for me as a kid, I saw like Clockwork Orange when I think I was 8 or 9 years old. I was seeing things I should not be seeing when I was very young. But I think 5 or 6 for ET is great. I think kids should cry. I think kids should get scared in movies. Like nothing, Clockwork Orange was bad. Like that was not a good thing to see at that age. But ET, I saw ET when I was really young, and I think nowadays we're so careful, right? But like
I
kids want to feel, they have all this emotion, right? So it's great
so,
that you're doing that.
well, funny story, and sorry if I'm like hijacking your interview and
Whoa.
telling my story, but it was my daughter's birthday, and I did like an outdoor cinema movie night, and I got the projector and the screen, and they invited all their friends, and it was I don't know how old they were, but I said, okay, we're going to watch Goonies, like, and so we're watching Goonies. All the kids are like, eating their popcorn, like mostly young little girls. And then one of the moms comes a little bit early to pick up the daughter, and one of the girls saw the mom. It just burst into tears, and she ran towards the mom, going that sloth scared her, and so she held it in, watching it the whole time.
You totally traumatized. You
So
How are you
and then
supposed to
she like
know?
ran to the mom, and the mom's like, yeah, yeah, it's okay, it's okay. And then ironically, like a week later, she kind of like came up, like I was picking a school drop off or pickup, and she was like, oh, I watched Goonies again, and it's so cool. And she got her like badge of honor that she's like, now that I watched Goonies and this is cool and I'm not afraid of it. And so anyways, it was just kind of funny
Awesome.
that I introduced it unbeknownst to me that it would traumatize her.
Yeah, but traumatized in a good way because there is, I think we're discovering right now, Gary, that there is good trauma. I feel like, the trauma of watching the horse drown in Neverending Story. What was that? Fairfax? Was that
Yeah,
the name of that horse?
yeah.
Or, like sloth being
Shadowfax.
scary.
No, that's a
Shadowfax.
Lord of the Rings.
That's Lord of the Rings. That's Lord of the Rings. We're not nerding out
Atreyu,
correctly.
Atreyu, I remember, but I can't. People are going to be in the comments going, "Get it
Yeah,
right."
definitely. Everyone tell us where we're wrong. But I think those are the experiences that like, yeah, they're traumatic, but we remember them. We want to see it again. We want to feel that again because she was, she watched it a week later, right? So sloth obviously scared her in a way that was exciting. So I think that's good.
Cool. Well, we've gone down memory lane, and let's now talk about what's going on right now, which is the Fang Dungeon Bestiary. You can see Erin's awesome illustrations on there, a set, and a little bit of I don't know if it's an homage to any of the Mary Blairs of the world, but the dungeon and deep underground. And let's start off with the Wickmaw. I love this character. You know what it reminds me of is the hairy beast from the Warner Brothers. I don't even know if he has a name. A little
Yes, I'm so glad he also, it's the mouth. It's definitely influenced by the shape, like the shape of that beast. He had like just these big shoulders, this sort of weird. He almost was shaped like the thing you use in a Ouija board. What are those? Like the little teller or the little.
Yeah,
anyway,
I don't
he
know
was
what
a
they're
weird
called.
shape. But this guy definitely has a monster from Looney Tunes vibe. I'm glad you picked up on that.
And then we've got the Drip Fang, which if we go back a couple slides, you'll see the stalactites. As I learned in grade 8 science, stalactite to the roof are those colors, and the Drip Fang awaits victims walking underneath, and once he plunges inside you, he just likes to chomp at your innards.
Wow, that sounds hot.
And then we've got the Iron Lash, made of enchanted armor from previous victims in the dungeon. And I really like what you did with the ball and chains here.
I loved your description. Like when I read the description for this one, I was so excited because morning stars are maybe one of my favorite weapons. I'm an axe girl personally. I love an axe, but I do really love a flay or a morning star. Also, I should mention that I had just watched Akira. Akira is another one. Akira is in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. So I had just watched Akira, like I guess a few weeks before I did this. And so there is like those stripes that I put in, like the kind of the road. I don't even know what you'd call them, like road sign stripes or like construction. Like there was definitely a little Akira influence. Not that you can see it, but I know it.
And then the blood grip, which will leave your face a flush of blood as it sucks it out from its fingertips.
Yum.
And you did have an earlier version of this with like 2 eyes, and then you showed me the one with 1 eye, and I was like, all right, no, that's like the one, and his little squiggly ears.
This one, I used a picture of myself as reference. Can't you tell? Doesn't it look exactly? No, because I had to get the hands right to show that he had the things on his fingers, right? So I was like, oh, I guess I always look for reference, but I was like, I can't find reference. So that was me.
Well, I love it, and very Gollum-esque. I'm not calling you Gollum-esque, but very Gollum-esque, which I really liked. Him just like a creepy little dude in the dungeon. And then the Doom Bristle, shooting his spikes off if you get too close. And just, I loved, I saw that different version, like, and FYI for the folks that are like watching this and going, I want to see the process. If you go to our social media after this interview, we're going to be releasing a bunch of like process videos so you can see Erin's work line by line. But at one point, the teeth changed sides, and for whatever reason, I forget if it reminded me of like a Looney Tunes thing where his teeth were like grinding on each other. I don't like, it was just part of you just switching the sides of the teeth. But when I saw it in motion, I thought it was super cool the way he was like grinding his teeth. And then we have the Grub Snarl. And if you jump in, if any of these like at whatever points you were like, oh, I thought this would be fun.
This one, I'm sure you remember, Gary. I said my first concept for this one. I misread the description, so my original concept for this was like this weird bear shaped, like sort of like a.
Oh, that's right.
Almost like a polar bear, like it was this big bear, and it was covered in grubs. It was covered in maggots. And it was, again, I had just seen Princess Mononoke. So it was like, how the Oh, the hog, the thing that had all the weird wormy things. So anyway, the original for this, the original concept was really disgusting. But this turned out disgusting as well. So
And it's little acid puke that comes out.
yeah.
And then the Torch Fiend, one of the more recent ones that you did. And when you go into a dungeon and it's black and dark inside and you need your torches, and this little beast feeds off light. So it's always trying to steal torches and leave you in the dark. And yeah, just like a fun little guy. As I recent edition with the antlers and just kind of like made him pop, I think.
I thought that was your suggestion. I think it really it's like it's the icing on the cake for this one for sure. For sure. He was fun to do. I really like doing that. Oh, this is the first one.
The shard crow. I don't even I know it's like sharp claws and it looks like a crow, and I really liked just like the twisty body nature of this.
Yeah, I think you said there was a snake. There was something about a snake, and then it immediately made me think of like Aztecian drawing, like artwork, and there was like this one god that it kind of reminds me. I can't remember his name now, but yeah, this was the first one. I had so much fun with it, and then you liked it, and I thought, oh my god, this is a great gig. Like these are fun to do, and he likes what I'm doing. Wow.
Well, and there's more to come before we finally release it. So the delivery date is we're expecting is June. And so I'm going to put Erin to work making more of these fun monsters, and I'm going to pitch in where I can. And so we're going to have 36 fun little monsters. And for those that have the core rules of Fangasahola, you know that like you basically build the dungeon with the random tables. And but if you've played it enough times, maybe the tables are getting a little bit stale. And now we're going to add some new tables for objects that you might find or dwellers that you might find. So it's going to freshen up your dungeons as well. So it's a win-win. And then you also in here, you can make monsters using tables. But now you've got 36 monsters that you can just add to your dungeon at any point. And Erin, you probably don't follow me enough on my social media or on my previous interviews and that kind of stuff. But this summer, we're going to be having a Fangasahola Monster Jam. So we're going to be encouraging folks to get out their crayons, their paints, their digital drawing tools, and to make monsters for Fangasahola. And so all you have to do is make one and come up with some concepts and some stats, and we'll be showcasing that. There's going to be IKEA gift cards as prizes once again. And so stay tuned for that. We're going to do it in the summertime. So if you have kids especially that are interested in getting into art and tabletop role-playing games, perfect opportunity to do this. But you're not allowed to participate, Erin. Sorry, you're going to be disqualified. In fact, I was going to ask you to be a judge, but well, we can talk about that.
I would love to be a judge. I love being judgmental. No, I would love to be a judge. I'd be honored.
Well, very cool. I'm glad to hear that. And I guess before we kind of close off on the interview part of it, you also do Zoom training for folks that are interested in learning these skills. And you also do, if you're in Vancouver, at the Cat Cafe, and I didn't know this, there's a bunny cafe as well that you're doing some, tell me about it. What do you do there?
I teach watercolor, drawing in watercolor. It's an hour and a half long class every Monday night. So I alternate between the bunny cafe and the cat cafe, and it's extremely cute. Especially at the cat cafe, because cats will come up and try to like paint with you. They really want to get in there. Bunnies are a little more docile, but they're really easy to paint. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's mostly people who have not painted really before, and it's watercolor, which can be tricky. So I show some really simple tips and ways to be creative, to express yourself. And it's for people, I think it's 8 and up, but it's usually adults. It's usually grown-ups that come out. It's a lot of fun.
And your Zoom classes, share how, like, if somebody's interested and they go, I want to build these skills, how do they do that?
The Zoom classes, I offer a 6-week course where we meet every week over Zoom. 2 hours a week, and we replicate Ivan Earl and Mary Blair pieces together. So it's a live, I have a camera, set up so people can see what I'm doing and they follow step by step. And in the 6 weeks, we cover 3 different pieces of concept art. And every week I send out supplemental videos showing the process, of the one that we're about to do. So those are great for beginners. People of all skill levels sign up for those courses. I've been doing them for over a year now. So there's those. And then I do paint nights. I do like paint parties where it's a 3-hour paint jam, basically. I'm calling it so many different things. I don't know what to call it, but it's those have been going on for a while now. And we pick one piece of concept art that we can do in 3 hours, and we just go for it. It's super fun. All the information is available on my YouTube Children of the Craft or on my Instagram Children of the Craft. And yeah, it's open to everybody. They fill up pretty fast. So, I mean, I want to knock on wood because I hope they keep filling up. But yeah, I'm always posting new dates and stuff. So yeah.
Cool. Well, I will have links to all those in the show notes. So get out there and practice art. It's what better way to spend your life and time is just being an artist. And just Erin, thank you for being on the podcast. Thank you for all your contributions to this Fang Dungeon Bestiary. And I hope to continue working with you for years to come. And for those other game designers that are going, hey, I'm going to hire Erin. I had her first, so leave her alone.
Yeah, you did. And it's been a total pleasure. Thank you so much, Gary. Thanks for having me. This was really fun. I've never done an interview before like this, so thank you.
Well, thank you so much, and I can't wait to see what else you come up with in the near future.
Thanks, Gary.